Hey, thanks for joining us. Coming up, a review of Matchweek 32, which saw shock defeats for Chelsea, for Leicester, big win for Newcastle, and of course, Liverpool's guard of honour at the Etihad. Helping me preview, or rather review, Matchweek 32 and preview the weekend's Matchweek 33, we have this week a special offer. We have 2 Craigs and 1 Keish for you. Hello to Craig Wilkie. How you doing, man?
I'm well. Could you not put me on last Friday?
Nice to see you've got your Liverpool top on. Craig Morraies, nice of you to join us.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Ross.
Always glad to have you. And Keish, fresh from the dentist last week. You're all right, yeah, this week?
Yeah, much better this week. I'm 5 hours up. I really feel like Klopp has been found out now.
I think they probably just had too much of the sponsor's product during the week. If you know what I mean. Nudge, wink. Right, let's talk about the football, and let's start with that match at the Etihad early Friday morning. Man City 4, Liverpool 0. The City did give Liverpool the guard of honour. Pep Guardiola was very vocal about it, said Liverpool deserved it and all that. But Craig Wilkie, they probably should have cut out the beverages on the bus.
They probably should have. I was actually looking forward to a guard of honour from you and Craig. It's
Keep
okay.
hoping, mate. Keep hoping.
Maybe next year. You're right. Liverpool definitely appeared as though they'd maybe had a shandy or two too many over the course of the past week. But let's not begrudge them that. It was a thoroughly deserved title win, and I think entirely appropriate that they celebrated it in the way that they did. Unfortunately, that's not great preparation for going to play away at Manchester City, and that's what we discovered last night. I mean, it was no real surprise to me that Liverpool lost that game. I think so much of Liverpool's success has been built on the intensity with which they play, and as soon as that intensity drops, then they're going to struggle a little bit. And it was understandable that it dropped last night. City were fantastic. I probably was a little bit surprised by just how poor Liverpool were. And if anything, it reinforces to me the need for that squad to be strengthened when the transfer window opens. I know there's been some very cautious noises coming out of Anfield. It's not going to be a big summer. There's not going to be a lot of money to spend. But I think 1 or 2 additions would be very welcome come the new season.
Okay, well, let's cut Liverpool some slack here. And let's just focus on how good City were, Craig Morraies. Because in Phil Foden, they have a replacement for the departing David Silva, haven't they?
Yeah, it's no secret just how good Phil Foden was. Over the last couple of seasons, I think it is, he's started to get minutes off the bench, starting the odd game here and there. And this kid is just amazingly talented. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of how good he is. I mean, he is so good that I think, come 3 years' time, 3 to 4 years' time, he'd be, the first name on the team sheet for City and England. And then in the future, like anything is possible with this kid. He's just that good. City were like Craig said, absolutely amazing. And I think, part of them had to come out there and prove a point, show not only Liverpool, not only the league, but the world that, hey, look, we were second best this season, but, it's not going to be the same kind of season next year. They will go up, they will spend, players like Phil Foden will get better as the season goes on once he gets, a run of games, a run of starts. And I just think, next season will be so fascinating because Liverpool has set the standard really high. Teams will now have to follow suit. Chelsea have already started their summer business. United will spend, and Man City will be back as well. Yeah. So what it tells us is that it's going to be a fantastic season. Look, I think everyone here, Craig included, didn't think that Liverpool would win this game anyway because of the celebrations over the past week, which like we all agree of, I'm sure, is understandable. But, City needed to lay down a marker, and they did last night.
Yep. Keish, I mean, yeah, celebrations and all that. But Liverpool can still end the season with a record 101 points if they take 15 of the remaining 18 points. I mean, we take nothing away. They can probably party on this weekend as well, but actually we probably fear for Villa this weekend, don't we?
Yeah, no, I think this will just be a one-off, an understandable one-off, definitely, because of the whole, it's been 30 years since they won the title, so any ounce of celebration is warranted, really. But I think if you just look at the body language of Jurgen Klopp in the post-match interviews, I think that's enough to suggest that whilst he understands that his players, may have not necessarily been in the perfect condition to have taken on Man City at their full might last night. But he also isn't a person who's willing to accept scorelines like that. He was slightly annoyed. Even in his body language, you could see that he wasn't too happy with the full extent of the scoreline. He will ignore it for last night, but I don't think he will tolerate it any further. Jurgen Klopp is a serial winner. He's a guy that's relentless when it comes to getting victories on the pitch. And I can already imagine him riling his team up ahead of that game against Villa. And I agree with you, Ross. I really fear for them because they will bounce back. It's not a secret. They will bounce back and they will be absolutely relentless against Villa.
Well, when City won the title, it was a record 19 points clear of second. Currently, Liverpool are 20 clear. I don't think they're going to slip up anymore, but watch this space. On with the week's football then. About the other teams chasing Champions League spots, Man United, Craig Morraies, is currently on a 15-match unbeaten run. They went away at Brighton and won 3-0. And again, the man they call their Portuguese Magnifico, Bruno Fernandes, start with a couple of goals. It was a good performance. And future, I mean, with young Mason Greenwood putting in a good shift and all that, looks really good, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. We were all waiting for this restart to happen so we could see Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba play together. And I think so far, they've gelled pretty well. Pogba has driven forward when we need to. But I think the unsung hero in this midfield has been Nemanja Matic, to be honest with you. I think his performances of late have been fantastic. I mean, this guy, is a player. I think he's about 32 now. Is getting on a little bit. Legs might be going, but the way he marshals that midfield, protects that back four, allows Pogba and Fernandes to have the freedom that they crave, that they need, to really express themselves. And it was shown in the third goal. I think it was Bruno's second. With that counter attack, which was set up was started off with Matic with a lovely pass out wide left to Greenwood. But as we spoke about Phil Foden at City, I think in Mason Greenwood, United have an absolute superstar as well. His performances, like Phil Foden, have been limited in the sense that he doesn't start every game throughout the season. He's only 18 years old, but he's another player who I think over the course of the years, not only for United but for England as well, will make a difference. And with the luxury of playing off the wing or, as the number 9, either foot, left or right, he's really got it all. And, as we come to the tail end of the season, United are really, hitting their stride, hitting some form. It's not going to be easy. Chelsea, despite the slip up, have played very well, to still be in there. Leicester seem to be crumbling a little bit. Wolves are still there. So it's going to be a really exciting end, and United still need to pick up points. They have a great run in, to be honest, but they can't afford to slip up.
All right, let's move on. So much football to talk about. Everton kept up their post-restart push for a place in next season's Europa League with an impressive 2-1 victory over Leicester City. Everton, for you, Craig Wilkie, I know you wear the red colours of Liverpool, but Everton have been quietly impressive post-break, and Ancelotti looks like he's actually getting results.
Yeah, quietly impressive. That sums up Ancelotti, doesn't it? I mean, you can just see the influence of coaching on the training ground. That now, since the restart, he's really been able to get his ideas across. That team is starting to play in the way that he wants them to. He's got them really organised. They're very disciplined. And of course, he hasn't brought in any players. This is a team that he inherited, and he's coached those players and made them better. He's got them playing in a system that seems to work. And once you start putting a few results together, once you start gaining the confidence that comes from that, then, a performance and a result like that the other night is not a surprise. On the other hand, Leicester, Craig mentioned it just a few minutes ago, crumbling is the word. It's such a phenomenal start to the season. And really, not even before the league was suspended, I think they had a month or two whereby they just didn't seem to be at it at all. And the confidence is gone. They used to be dominating teams. They would pass the ball around in the way that Rodgers likes his team to play. But there was virtually no evidence of that the other night. There hasn't really been much evidence of that for some time now. So Leicester, for me, are really struggling to keep their hold on that Champions League spot.
Yeah, Keish, what is wrong with Leicester? It can't be tiredness. I mean, they were going great guns. Suddenly, Man United are now just 3 points off them.
Yeah, exactly. I think we had this conversation about Leicester a couple of weeks back as well. And for me, at least, right, I genuinely feel that this Leicester side lacks a bit of variety. But don't get me wrong. I think if you look up front, when you look at someone like Jamie Vardy, he's a fantastic player. But what separates Leicester from a lot of these teams that are looking to push for Champions League at the moment is that they haven't got a lot of options up front. You take Jamie Vardy out of the equation, who is going to be that guy that's going to spearhead the ability to score goals on a consistent basis? You look at some of the other teams that are competing for the top four. You look at Man United, where are goals going to come from? They come from Martial, Rashford, Greenwood. All it takes is for one player to not be on form, so to speak, and someone else steps up. Perfectly in the context of Man United against Brighton, Anthony Martial didn't exactly have the best of games on that particular night, but he didn't need to, because there were other players who were able to step up the plate, not just up front, but everywhere across the park, right? You look at Man United, like what Craig just mentioned, right? The resurgence of Nemanja Matic. And it's not like United don't have any other decent midfielders, because prior to this, everyone was talking about Fred and McTominay and the kind of impact that they were having on the team. And my biggest problem with Leicester is that they just don't have that bit of variety. When systems or when certain players go off the song for a bit, then they just immediately struggle. I think Jamie Vardy has sort of just been in and out of games. And when you take someone of his influence out of the equation, they really struggle for options up front and for options for creativity all over the park.
All right. With that, Jamie Vardy, if you looked at the match the other day, I mean, he had nothing to feed off. There were no chances created for him. Even the goal, it was him being, hustling and bustling his way around, and it kind of fell to Iheanacho in the box. James Maddison came off the bench, and when he came off the bench, he offered that little element of, something different, some creativity in and around the box. Just go back to Everton. Just a quick stat that I found, which I thought was really interesting, and that's if the league started when Everton sacked Marco Silva, they would be fourth in the league. So that's the kind of run that Carlo Ancelotti has gone on, and the remarkable job he's been doing there, because it was a big turnaround. We saw Everton under Marco Silva, and it wasn't great. So him and his team have changed fortunes around at Goodison Park, and and they'll be a force to reckon with, I think, come next season.
All right. Probably the biggest shock result of Matchweek 32 came from the West Ham Stadium. West Ham 3, Chelsea 2. Chelsea they were kind of cruising it. They went 1-up, then they were 2-1 up. And Andrei Yarmolenko, remember him? Him off the left foot. Came on as a sub, scored a beauty, but it was Mikel Antonio, Craig Wilkie, up front for West Ham that really put in a shift. And surprising to see the Hammers with some fight.
Very surprising. What a game. I had a little bit of everything, including the return of the dreaded VAR to complicate and provide some controversy and things. Although, in a way, given that so much is strange about the resumption of the league, it's almost comforting to be able to come back and complain about VAR and some of the decision-making around that. But yeah, I remember we had a conversation just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I said at the time, I don't see where a performance is coming from West Ham. They looked so out of sorts and just lacking in inspiration. And it just shows you that this league is unpredictable. And one night, if things can go your way a little bit, and what you have to really give them credit for is how the game looked like it was going against them. You know, with the decisions that they were the victims of in a way in the first half, and to find themselves in the position that they did. I think it was vital that they got back on terms just before half-time. That would have steadied them a little bit going into the break. And then they came out and, like you say, they showed some spirit, showed some heart, which hasn't really been evident for the past few weeks. And what a huge result it might be in the context of that relegation fight down there. Not only in terms of the 3 points that they pick up, but just that bit of confidence going into the next few games, which they're going to need. And then there's going to be games, 6-pointers coming up against teams around them. And if they can feel that bit of confidence going into those, West Ham will definitely now feel as though they've given themselves a chance of getting out of that.
Yeah. Keish, for Chelsea, though, Frank Lampard said, well, that's about just where we are at the moment. But not that deep, his voice, but it was kind of like that. Yeah, it's a kick in the guts for them in their Champions League chasing season.
Yeah, it's a massive blow. And it's a surprising one as well, given the run of results that Chelsea have been having. I mean, that win over Man City was brilliant, right? And I don't think it's a one-off, because Chelsea's performance in that game, it clearly looked like a lot of planning, a lot of strategizing went into it. You could see how Frank Lampard was having an impact on the team, and you were expecting to see similar things like that. I completely agree with Craig Wilkie. I mean, it's not just judging by West Ham's recent form or David Moyes' demeanor on the touchlines. I genuinely never expected West Ham to pull this off against Chelsea, especially the Chelsea that we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks. But I think there could be some issues. It's been talked about on social media as well. There are a number of these players within the Chelsea dressing rooms whose future no longer lies at Stamford Bridge post this season. And there are some of them where the future is still uncertain at the moment. Because you see Chelsea, there are a couple of big names who are set to join the team. You see the team consistently being linked with names like Kai Havertz, with other names as well. So if you're one of the fringe players within the team, you're starting to just think about your future. And I think that's creating a bit of tension possibly within the dressing room. Maybe not every single one of them are 100% focused on the mission at hand, which is pretty big at the moment, Champions League football, and that could just be having a bit of an impact in terms of where the teams are focusing on at the moment, because you can't go from just completely dominating Man City to then having a 2-1 lead over West Ham before then sort of crumbling. It doesn't make sense,
Yeah, okay. One of the players, Craig Morraies, that Keish mentions that maybe hasn't got Frank Lampard's confidence. Do you reckon Kepa is the name? The goalie, look, he was warned with the VAR disallowed goal, and then again he flapped for Souček's goal.
Well, I mean, I looked at both those goals, and I'm putting the fingers at Azpilicueta, to be honest with you. I really think he was fault. I mean, just before the disallowed goal, if you remember, there was a tussle within the box, and it was Azpilicueta getting himself involved with Souček and a couple of others, making a real nuisance of himself. And that goal came around. Look, Kepa hasn't inspired a lot of confidence this season. I don't think it helps that the back four in front of him has always changed. One day you've got Reece James, one day you've got Azpilicueta. Your centre backs are constantly changing. Tomori played. Rudiger, I think, has probably been the most selected out of the four centre backs that they have. But then you get Kurt Zuma coming in and Christensen. And at left back, no one's actually nailed the spot, until recently when Marcos Alonso. So it's been a little bit all over the shop in front of him, which as a keeper, you don't really like. I mean, if you go with your De Gea's, if you go with your Alisson Beckers and Edersons, you more or less know 3 of the 4 that are going to start games, and you start to get into the rhythm with them and understanding. Kepa hasn't had that luxury. I don't think Chelsea will go into the market for a keeper, to be honest. I think, he's still pretty young. I think he's got a good future there. Yes, can he improve? Of course he can, But, it was never going to be easy coming into the Premier League, where it's a lot more physical. I mean, we only have to look at someone like De Gea, coming in at a young age.
Yeah, his first season was tough,
Yeah. So I think he's in his second season now, Kepa. you know, and it's been up and down. You got a new manager coming in, you got a young squad. So look, I wouldn't look too much into it. I think he'll be there for years to come. But this West Ham, result, shocked everyone, And if you looked at Morraies pre-match, in the pre-match interview, he said the performances have been there. Something like this has been brewing for a while. And I've watched a few West Ham games, over the last few weeks, and I have to agree to a certain extent. There was this type of performance coming. It's the defensive frailties that worried me coming into this. And we saw that as well. We still did see that. But counter-attacking on the night for West Ham was absolutely fantastic. Bowen on the break, Yarmolenko. That was a guy, when West Ham signed him, I was shivering a little bit, because I've seen this guy play for Ukraine, and over the years, England have been drawn up against them, quite a lot. And this guy coming off the right-hand side with that left foot, exactly how he scored, the winning goal. That was a kind of Yarmolenko that I was used to seeing. It was a fantastic result. Mikel Antonio, gives 110%. Might not be the best, technique-wise, but he gave Rudiger and Christensen absolute nightmares on the night, and a big 3 points. One thing I will disagree quickly, Ross, is that I just don't think West Ham, I know the points would suggest otherwise, but I can't see any of the three, below them, your Norwich, your Villas, and Bournemouth, getting any points from now to the end of the season, which is the only thing that saves a lot of teams down there.
Yeah. Well said, actually. All right, let's wrap up our look at Matchweek 32 with another big shock. Newcastle went away at Bournemouth and hit 4 by the seaside. Bournemouth, they look doomed. They've been looking doomed for weeks, but Newcastle and this Anna Saint-Maximin with a hat trick of assists. He's unplayable, Craig Wilkie, when he's on form. Can you imagine him on one side, Traore on another side? Wow.
Yeah, well, your point is absolutely right. On his day, he's virtually unplayable, but his day is a little bit infrequent. I think that's the issue for him and for Newcastle for parts of the season. But yeah, it's a tale of two managers in many respects, because Bournemouth, as Craig was saying, they just look dire, and they've looked dire for quite a long time now. And what's interesting about that is, really, it's not all that long ago that we were talking about Eddie Howe and what a great job he'd done, and he was being linked with potentially some bigger jobs. And now it's very difficult to see how they're going to avoid relegation. So there's a man, we talked about maybe he would be a candidate for the Arsenal job or something like that, and now we don't even know if he'll save his job at Bournemouth. And then on the other side of the equation, you look at Steve Bruce, who came in, and nobody really gave him much of a shout when he first arrived at Newcastle. It was seen as a pretty underwhelming appointment, I think, for a lot of Newcastle fans. And what a great job he's done over the course of this season. Better for me than Benitez did last season. Okay, he's had a little bit of money that was spent last summer, but he's really got that team playing. And this was a great result and a great performance. Of course, the question now is, will he remain if in charge of Newcastle if the takeover goes ahead, or will they look to appoint a bigger name? I think ultimately, if the takeover goes ahead, then they will look for somebody else. But I really hope that on the basis of what he's done this season, that Bruce is given a chance next season and beyond to prove that he's capable of working with a better quality of player and taking that club on a little bit, because he's earned it on the basis of what he's done so far.
All right, let's wrap up Matchweek 32 then and show you all the results. It started with Southampton's away win at Watford. Ings is on fire. Get him in your fantasy teams now. Burnley won at Crystal Palace. We heard about Man United, Brighton. We didn't talk about Arsenal and Aubameyang. He's on fire as well. 4-0 against also as bad as Bournemouth, Norwich. Newcastle 4-1 win. And of course, Spurs shock defeat at Sheffield United. Was it a shock, really? I don't know. We'll talk about it all in Matchweek 33. But here's a look at the table. At the top, Liverpool, 20 points clear of City. The Champions League chasing spots are very interesting. Chelsea, Man United, and Wolves are looking at Leicester City going, we're having you. And at the bottom, as Craig Morraies mentioned, Norwich, Bournemouth, Villa at the moment look pretty bad. And big weekend for most of these clubs. fighting relegation and Champions League spots. And we're going to preview Match Week 33 next. Taking a look now at Match Week 33. It starts early Saturday evening with Norwich against Brighton. Norwich, we all liked them when they came up. We thought Daniel Farke played a very interesting brand of football, etc., etc. But they've registered only 4 home wins at Carrow Road this season. And that kind of form, Keish, is relegation fodder.
Yeah, it's definitely relegation fodder. And I think part of the Norwich hierarchy have begun to accept that reality. And not recently even, I think they sort of probably even accepted it before the Premier League was halted due to the coronavirus. What's encouraging is, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of what Daniel Farke is trying to do, right? Playing that positive football. I obviously think it's naive to be that adventurous in the Premier League, especially when you're a squad with the size of Norwich and the kind of budget that Norwich have. But I like the initiative to want to have enjoyable, watchable football when Norwich take onto the pitch. And there's already conversations about him potentially even continuing the project in when it comes to the Championship as well. The only problem is you've got some really good players. Individual players, especially the guy up front. I can't seem to recall his name at the moment, but there's some really promising names in that Norwich starting 11. Not just the spotlight is often on Timo Pukki, but you put him out of the picture and there's some Todd Cantwell. That's the one. That's the guy that I genuinely enjoy watching.
I thought you meant Pukki. You didn't want to say Pukki.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
I meant Todd Cantwell. I'm a huge fan of Todd Cantwell. I just think that given the sort of exposure that he has gotten throughout this season, players of Todd Cantwell's caliber might be seeking to leave Norwich and at the end of the season. But if they can keep this core group of players, I don't see a reason why they can go back to the Championship and can't push back for another promotion back into the Premier League. They have been naive, but on the record, I love the initiative to want to play enjoyable, watchable football.
Yeah, all right. Well, Craig Morraies, surely Daniel Farke and Norwich's aim is to be like this weekend's opponent, Brighton. Brighton play attractive football. They're not massive. They don't spend a lot of money, but they buy well. I mean, in Leandro Trossard, when he came on against Man United, they look really good.
Yeah, he looks to be a good buy. You got people like McAllister, who's young. That is going to be a good player for the future. You see, when Chris Hughton left or got sacked, I think it raised a few eyebrows because he managed to keep them in the division, and a lot of people felt it was a really harsh decision that the club took. But in Graham Potter, what they got was a young manager that's coming in, getting a job at the top tier in English football for the first time. But what he was bringing was his ideas and his philosophy, which he'd done in, I think it was Norway previously, what he'd done at Swansea, and implementing that there. With that, comes a overhaul of the playing staff, the players, the players that were coming in, they were young, and they were never people like Trossard and everything. I don't think they were meant to have an effect straight away in the Premier League. This was deciding for a few years' time. So I think he's building something fantastic over there at Brighton. I think Brighton as a club, the changes that they've made, not only when it comes to the playing side of things with the manager, with the players that they brought in, but even off the field. When they got Dan Ashworth in, I think it was a couple of years ago now. That kind of started the whole process. So they're a very well-run club.
Yeah.
I'm expecting big things from Brighton over the next few years. I'm not expecting them to win the league and do a Leicester or anything like that. But in terms of improvement, in terms of where they're finishing, and over the years, you're going to see a steady improvement, I feel. top half finishes, maybe even a challenge for Europe in the not so distant future. So I think the model that Brighton are following is going to be a very good one. Just go back to Norwich. I agree with everything that Keish says. Absolutely, the way they've come in, they've been very naive. That they have a brand of football, they want to play it. But I'm always, I respect that. I think it's fantastic when you get a manager that comes in that doesn't want to just put men behind the ball and play boring football. He wants to go out there, let the players express themselves. But playing football, especially when you're playing football from the keeper out the back, as we saw over the weekend against Arsenal, if you don't have the players that can do it, if you don't have the keeper that can do it, it's never going to work, especially not at this level, as Arsenal found out under Unai Emery. When you don't have the players that can play that way, it's always going to be a struggle. And Norwich have found that out. Okay.
Norwich Brighton is your early Saturday kickoff, 7:30. Craig Wilkie, Leicester host Crystal Palace at the King Power Stadium. Now, the entire city of Leicester are in enforced lockdown at the moment. Unfortunately, Leicester FC said they can play. So I'm sure they'd rather be in lockdown. But they need to get some...
wish that were the case.
Yeah, they need to get some form back, Craig. And can they with this game?
This is the last chance, as far as I'm concerned. If Leicester don't pick up 3 points here, I think they're out of the running for the Champions League spots. I really do. This is such a huge and vital game, especially at home with the sort of run that they've been on. Palace, not the easiest opponent in the world to get yourself back on track against. But if Leicester don't do it here, I just don't see them having the confidence and the belief in their ability to go on and clinch a Champions League spot, which is kind of amazing when we think of the start that they had the season. And for a while, it looked like they would be safe and everybody else was playing for one other Champions League place. But that's absolutely not the case now. And that mini league for the Champions League qualifications now is so exciting. And Leicester, like I say, they better start this weekend or I think they'll slip out of it quite quickly.
All right. Well, one of the teams chasing down Leicester City is Man United. They are on a 15-match unbeaten run at the moment. Keish, the problem now is expectancy levels are very high from Man United fans now when they watch a game. So they're thinking, Bournemouth this weekend, this must be a 4-0, right?
Yeah. I mean, how long has it been since United fans got excited for a 3:15 a.m. kickoff?
I think Van Persie was still playing at the time.
Yeah, but I think there's every reason for United fans and even the team as a whole to be positive as well. They've been on a really good run since the restart. What I love is, obviously, we've seen this Pogba-Bruno combo with Matic sort of sitting deep. But I also like the fact that they can switch it up. You still have players like Fred and McTominay on the bench. I think Daniel James can come on late in the game and stretch defenders on as well. So there's opportunities for goals and creating chances all across the park, and I really appreciate that. Mason Greenwood has been brilliant. Martial sort of was in and out against Brighton, but I think he will be looking to bounce back as well this time around. What's even more fascinating is like what Craig pointed out just now, Leicester. And I think United will take a keen look on that particular game, because if this does not go well for Leicester, they've got Arsenal coming next. In their list of fixtures, they've got Sheffield United. They've got to play Spurs. And don't forget, the final game of the season, they do play Man United. But for United, if Leicester slip up against Palace with, two difficult games against Arsenal and Spurs coming up next for them as well, I think for United, it'll be all about, they could even potentially look at not just Champions League, but at third place. That would be an exceptional season for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. If United finish third, and they get into potentially, they're already in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. They were already in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup prior to this. They're still in the run for Europa League. So there's a lot to play for Ole's boys. And unlike Chelsea, I feel that United squads don't have a lot of distractions at the moment. Your Angel Gomez has left, but everyone else sort of, is committed and focused on the immediate goal of hand, which is, we rarely look at a United. How long has it been since we looked at a United team and said that, everyone is sort of focused on a goal? And that's the feeling that you're getting from the United team at the moment.
All right, both those games kick off at 10 p.m. Leicester, Crystal Palace, and Man United, Bournemouth. Possibly the most attractive tie for me, Craig Morraies, is Wolves versus Arsenal. Now, we didn't talk much about Arsenal. They've been going quietly, going along all right. No defeat in their last 3. They hit 4 in midweek. Arteta is stamping his authority. We've seen Ozil left out. Guendouzi almost ostracized at the moment. So it's going along slowly, but it's going along.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at this, really. You can say unbeaten in your last 3, but when you look at the opponents that they've come up against, it's victories that you expect, a side like Arsenal to win. I mean, you're playing, Norwich at home, and they gifted them 2 goals out of the 4, things like that. I mean, it's something you expect a team like Arsenal, no matter how bad their run has been, when you have the quality that they do, you do expect them to pick up these points. This, however, is a real proper test for them. I mean, we've spoken about Leicester, United, all chasing for that place. I mean, Wolves. We've not mentioned Wolves at all in depth. Chelsea are there, Leicester there, United are there. Wolves are level on points with Man United. So they're no way by any stretch of the imagination out of the running for 3rd place or out of the running for Champions League spots. Arsenal, I just don't know how to see them, to be honest with you. I mean, I've watched them. They can be hot as they were against Norwich, and they, then you can see in a performance like they put on against Brighton, where they can be sucker punched. And defensively, the frailties are still there. Yeah, and Wolverhampton, if you have someone like Traore running at you, you have, the informed Jimenez up there, you've got Jota. That could be worrying times for Arsenal. I actually favour Wolverhampton Wanderers for this. I think they've been fantastic throughout the season. I think they've got players that have shown up when it mattered. And like Keith said, you still have uncertainty within the players there. I know Saka just signed a few days ago. Oba still hasn't committed himself to the cause. Defensively, I think your David Luiz is on for another season. Suarez is coming back for Arsenal, but I mean, it's going to be a tough game, and if Arsenal have, if we're going to see any signs of progression under Mikel Arteta, this will probably be the game where you see it. Whether Arsenal are, going in the right direction. Are they, okay, we've given Arteta 6 months now. What have they come up with? How are they going to look for next season? This will be a big indicator as to how we're going to see the Arsenal over the next couple of years.
All right, Wolves versus Arsenal is a must-watch over the weekend. Chelsea versus Watford, Craig Wilkie. It's a Sunday 3 a.m. kickoff. You probably won't be up for that one. Chelsea will be parading the new kit, which has the number 3 on the front. Watford,
magic number, apparently.
Exactly. Watford, since the restart, have been disappointing. They were one of our tips to avoid relegation, but now they even look like they could be dragged back in.
Well, both clubs have got so much to play for, don't they? It's so tight, both for those relegation spots and also the Champions League qualification, as we were just mentioning. Chelsea, as we said earlier, I think we have to give Lampard a lot of credit for what he's done this season. He's blooded the youngsters. He's given them a chance. He's put them into the system that he wants to play. And again, going back to the interview he gave after the game the other night, I think he was just very honest. It was a very honest assessment of where Chelsea are. They're on a journey. They're clearly going in the right direction. He knows that he needs to reinforce that squad, and he's already begun to do it. So I think it's still optimistic times for a Chelsea fan. If you go back to the start of the season and, Hazard had just left, you've got the transfer ban, Chelsea fans probably didn't go into this season feeling very optimistic. Of course, the first game of the season was a terrible result at Old Trafford. And he's recovered from that. He's got them right back into contention. He knows that there's still work to be done, especially on that defence. And so, this is a massive game for both clubs. But I expect Chelsea at home will bounce back and will take the 3 points that they need to stay in the hunt.
All right, Chelsea-Watford Sunday, 3 a.m. kickoff. You've got Burnley versus Sheffield United. You've got Newcastle versus West Ham. Keish, Liverpool versus Aston Villa. We said earlier on in the show how we feared for Villa in this one because, Liverpool didn't get the result they wanted at the Etihad. Now they're at home. Pride's at stake. I know even without the fans. Villa are on for a tonking here. Or are Liverpool going to continue drinking?
No. This is, I mean, I'm just laughing thinking about how devastatingly scary it must be for the Villa players to be thinking about, oh man, we're gonna go to Anfield this weekend. Make no mistakes. Liverpool have had their the comfort space to be able to celebrate and party. But if we have learned anything from Jurgen Klopp over the last 5 years that he has spent at Liverpool, this man is a serial winner. Not just in the point of wanting to win trophies, but every game matters to him. And it's very easy, right? Like for a man that has accomplished everything that he has done in the last week, it would have been very easy for him to have just brushed off the 4-0 defeat last night. I think most of the Liverpool fan base were prepared to do that as well. But again, I keep going back to the post-match interviews. I suggest you guys, I mean, if viewers out there, go and check it out. Look at his reaction to some of the questions from Jeff Shreves.
Yeah.
He was not happy at all. And it wasn't because of the questions. It was a lot more than that. He is not a man who can accept 4-0 defeats. He's not a man who can accept dropping the ball in that way, not behaving like champions. I think this would be the Liverpool players will be up for it. They'll be determined to provide a response. And it's just a matter of how many goals. And again, I really, really feel for the Villa players going to Anfield this weekend.
All right.
Villa have sent a few extra crates to keep the party going. Huh?
Good shout. All right, let's wrap up. I'll look at Matchweek 33 with Southampton against Man City. Craig Morraies, it's a Monday 2 a.m. kickoff. We've spoken about Klopp, but Hasenhüttl, the Alpine Klopp, has done very well. He's got Ings scoring. Southampton don't look in danger at all.
The Alpine Club, I love it, Ross. I love it. I think you got to look back to early in the season. When they had that awful result against Leicester, and I think the sign of a club, of a manager who has the backing of his players, can't be any more evident than it has been since then. I mean, you're talking about a real tonking against a very good Leicester side. But the way they bounced back after that, the changes that they've made to it. Yes, Danny Ings, I think he's second in the goal scoring charts now in the race for the Golden Boot. I mean, what an achievement for someone whose club is, down in the bottom half of the table. I think the next 3 fixtures for Southampton are very, very tricky, and trying to get them to get something from them. I mean, I can see maybe a draw here and there, but I think they have the next 3 are really tough. But like I said earlier, when it came to West Ham, I think our bottom 3 right now are the bottom 3 that goes down. I can't see either of them getting out of that scrap right now. And I think Southampton are safe, to answer your question, Ross. It's going to be a tall order to get something when City come to visit. But, in saying that, don't be surprised if they come out of this with a point. I love the way that Hasenhüttl's organised that team. He's got them playing. James Ward-Prowse has now taken over the armband. I really rate him. Their set pieces are a different level. I think the only blemish on that is the fact that they'll probably lose Højbjerg when the season ends. And I think he's really important part of what they do in that central midfield area. So they'll go shopping in the summer for sure. And it's just a case of who they sign up, really. But great job by Southampton. They're definitely going to be in the Premier League next season. And Danny Ings, Danny Ings for Golden Boot. It says something. It really does.
Yeah, 2020, what a year.
Yeah.
All right, here are your match week 33 fixtures then. Norwich Brighton is your early kickoff on Saturday. Then you've got 2 10 p.m. kickoffs, Leicester and Man United playing at home. Wolves Arsenal is very tasty. Late Saturday, early Sunday. Your Sunday dinner time game, maybe you can go out for dinner because it's Burnley Sheffield United. Liverpool Aston Villa is 11:30. Man City Southampton late or rather early Monday morning. And of course, Everton are away at Spurs on Tuesday morning. We'll talk about that on our Monday radio show. Now, though, let's get some predictions from the guys. And we're going to start with you, Keish. Which of the 10 lovely ties are you going to choose? And what's your big shout?
Yeah, I'm going to go for the Leicester Palace game. Given Leicester's form, I think the enforced lockdown in their city is the last thing. It's really the last thing they needed at this point. It might even have a minor impact on their psychological situation as well. And as much as I really like the Leicester story, as much as I really like a lot of the players that are within the team, but having seen their performances in recent weeks, I think Palace are going to upset them in this particular fixture, and their deterioration is just going to continue.
Okay, Roy to be victorious in the Midlands. Craig Wilkie, what's your big shout?
Well, after the surprise result in midweek, I'm going to take West Ham to continue a run of form and get a result away at Newcastle. I mean, that would be a huge win for them if they were to pull that off. But coming off the back of that win against Chelsea, I think they'll go into that game with a lot of confidence, and this could be a big shout for the weekend.
Whoa, Scotsman backs Scotsman.
You have to every now and then.
Craig Morraies, what's your big shout?
Yeah, I'm going to go and predict the match of the weekend for me. Burnley Sheffield United. I'm going to go. I think Burnley at home. I think after the beating they got, after the restart, I think they've really come on. They're back to the Burnley that we know, the 1-0 Burnley that we know. I think they will beat Sheffield United despite their fantastic result against Spurs last night. I feel Sean Dyche and Burnley will get a home win here.
Brilliant stuff. Many thanks to the three gentlemen. Thank you to Keish. Thank you to the two Craigs, Wilkie and Morraies. And thanks to you guys for watching. We'll be back on radio on Monday and back here next Friday. Bye now.